Hey guys, this is Ben Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our Week 7 DraftKings running back picks. Now, there's a couple guys that are going to be complete standouts for me. I think we're going to see a few guys that are incredibly highly owned at the running back position this week. But again, these are guys that you want to use in cash games. They're going to be a couple of the guys that I mentioned, and there's some of the guys who look like they're in the absolute best spots, and that's why everybody is looking to use them. We're going to mention them. We're also going to mention a couple other guys who might go a little bit more under the radar. There's basically 4 guys who I really, really like and are going to be the anchors to most of my cash games this week, as well as a lot of my tournament plays. So let's call up the PowerPoint slide and get right into it. Give me 1 second here. All right, here we go. The 4 guys we're going to talk about are Todd Gurley, Lamar Miller, Latavius Murray, and Devonta Freeman. Now, Gurley's going to be the guy who I think is going to be incredibly highly owned. He's favored by 5 and at home. He faces Cleveland, who has allowed the second most fantasy points this year to running backs. Gurley, in the 2 games since becoming basically the lead guy, has 305 rushing yards. He's averaged over 25 touches since becoming the primary back. He has 5 runs of 20-plus yards already and is averaging 5.7 yards per carry. Those are some absolutely eye-popping numbers. He also has not gotten into the end zone yet, which is something that has actually kept his scores down. The way that the algorithms go over on some of these sites as well, touchdowns account for a big part of it. So that's actually why we're still able to get Gurley at a pretty cheap price, despite the fact that he's ripping off about 160 total yards a game right now. Again, against one of the worst rush defenses that we have in the league, I think he's going to be able to have a huge game here. This is a great spot for him, and at only $5,000, he provides a lot of salary savings. Again, he's going to be very popular. He should be a staple of most people's cash games, and I even think that he's viable in a lot of tournaments, although I think his ownership rate might be creeping up to that point where you really have to start considering whether or not you're going to fade him. Guy who I think you can swerve off in similar price range is Lamar Miller. Miller is also favored by 4 and at home. He plays a Houston team that allows the 7th most points to fantasy running back. Miller is finally seeing 20-plus touches. He had 21 last game, and he's also able to add a few catches to his score every game. If he sees 15 to 20 carries again like he should, plus the catches, he should be able to put up around 20 fantasy points for a second week in a row and really be a solid, cheap option that you can put into your roster. I think eventually we're going to see him start creeping up into the $5,500 to $6,500 range. So while you're still able to get him for under $5,000, I think it's a good time to put him in your rosters. Next guy I want to talk about is Latavius Murray. Murray is a guy who plays in a high total game with 48 points allowed. Hold on 1 second. Let me get back to that last slide here. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's a guy, he's basically an every down back. He's game script proof. And what that means is whether they're winning, whether they're losing, he's either going to be the guy catching passes out of the backfield or the guy that's getting some runs. He's healthy coming off the bye week, which is something that, he was a little banged up the last couple of weeks when he hasn't been playing all that great. And he's seeing about 20 touches per game. So he's going to get the volume. He's going to have a chance to put up some big numbers. His price is a little more expensive than guys like Miller and Gurley, which is why I mentioned them first and like them a little better. But he makes for a great tournament swerve off of those guys in a pretty good situation. The last guy I want to mention is Devonta Freeman. I left him for last because you know what they say, save the best for last. This guy is in the midst of one of the best running back production stretches we have ever seen in NFL football. 84 carries, 463 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns in his last 4 games. And that's just the carries. He also has 25 catches, 233 yards, and a touchdown to go with that. So overall, he has 109 touches in the last 4 games for 696 yards and 9 touchdowns. Those numbers are absolutely eye-popping. He has 4 straight games where he scored 35-plus fantasy points. And remember, Lamar Miller just lit up this Tennessee defense last week. So even though they do have some pretty good numbers against the run, it's not like we haven't already seen running backs go off against them. I think that they're going to get Freeman more involved in this game. They're going to try to get everything back on track. And again, the way this guy has been playing lately, I don't know how you can consider fading him because he has just basically been carrying fantasy teams all by himself. And that sums it up for the 4 guys who I think are the most important guys to look at this week. 4 guys who I'm going to have in a lot of my rosters, and 4 guys who, frankly, I expect to see in a lot of people's rosters. If you're looking for some guys that you can use in a tournament to kind of differentiate yourself, I'm not sure this is the week I really want to fool around too much. You can get guys like Gurley and Lamar Miller very cheap, and by putting the 2 of them into your lineup, you can go and fit in a guy like a Gronk or a DeAndre Hopkins or a Julio Jones or an Odell Beckham if those are some of the guys that you feel like paying up for. There's a lot of chances for you to pay up this week with some of those guys if you're able to put some of these cheaper running backs into your roster, and that's going to be the way that I'm going to be rolling with it. So thank you for joining us here at RotoCurve. Once again, my name is Benny Ricciardi. Please be sure to give us a thumbs up on these videos if you like them. It definitely helps us move up in the rankings a little bit, and it helps us look good with the boss so that he keeps paying the bills so we can keep bringing you all this wonderful information. So thank you guys as always, and stay classy, DFS.